giving me this opportunity. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity to be, to have this platform, to be able to share my perspectives, my views. Before I begin, I must confess, I really love your name, The Lost Key. That's what attracted me to accept this offer in the very first place. As soon as Sucharita said it, we have a group, we call it The Lost Key. I said, I love the name. And I think that's what it's all about. We are searching for something that is not really lost, but it appears to be lost, right? Our self, our true self, the fullness of ourself, if you will, that the glorious part of ourselves, which we seem to have forgotten. And we seem to have got into a comfort zone, which is very comfortable, but nevertheless very limiting. It's like being in a prison. Chalo yaar, something you get, subah mil jata hai, kuch khana, raat ko mil jata hai, bas aaram se raho. And we say, okay, we get our food in the morning, we get our food in the night. You know, what's there to complain? Just drift along. And we live in this little prison cell that we call the I and the mind. We have defined that. We have defined who we are. We have defined what we like, what we don't like. And then we carry on our lives, a little realizing that our definition of ourselves is a very, very minuscule part of what really is there. So let me begin with understanding what a spiritual lifestyle is. Let me go to that. To me, spiritual lifestyle, we call it lifestyle today. It's kind of the buzzword, I guess. Holistic lifestyle, spiritual lifestyle, mindful lifestyle. To me, the word lifestyle is synonymous with the word sadhana. Sadhana is again a mindful life, a life where we become we live consciously. We don't drift along. And so I'm going to use spiritual lifestyle as understanding the path of sadhana. So before we go there, a couple of things I want to say is, when we get into the spiritual lifestyle or the understanding of spirituality in general, there is a broad base upon which we work generally, right? And I'm sure there are many exceptions in this group, so pardon me, I'm not making a judgment call here. But what happens is, when we form this broad base, we call it philosophy. And I'm going to use it synonymously at this time with religion, because many of the philosophies find religion as the base. However, I believe there are exceptions to this rule, such as the oldest religions that have existed, Judaism, for example, and Sanatana Dharma, especially, which is the very name Sanatana Dharma is not, it's not even a religion. It's an eternal way of life. It wasn't confined to a geographical location in the world, and so on. And so, but that formed the basis, that the way of life that was taught in Sanatana Dharma, of which Vedanta was a big part of it. And today we call Hinduism, but Hinduism is a part of the Sanatana Dharma. I wouldn't use them as synonyms, because we've reduced that to a small religion and we call it Hinduism. Nevertheless, those are things we can always debate upon. So we form, all of us, from whichever religion we come from, we form a philosophical base. And many times what happens is, we get convinced and we get comfortable with the philosophy. And then we discuss various philosophies. We discuss more texts. We go from one group and another group. We go from one satsang to another satsang. We do all these discussions, reading of books, listening, and all of that forms this part of the philosophy. Because we need that. It's not unimportant. It's very, very, very important, because that keeps strengthening the foundation, that keeps maintaining that foundational base. And eventually that begins to form what I call the core belief. That begins to form the pillars of your faith. And by faith, I don't mean religion here. I mean the very core of your personality, that which truly fuels our thoughts, words, and deeds. So we need this. But there is a but here, right? However, if we get comfortable here and just stay in this zone, we miss the point. It's like having a book of recipes of fantastic dishes. And then you read one recipe and the next recipe, and like, oh my God, this recipe sounds amazing. And then you go to another recipe, and then you finish the book, and then you say, let me get another book. And then now you have a library behind me. Yeah, the library of books, not of recipes. It's spiritual recipes, if you will. So then you become addicted to recipes. And then one fine day, somebody says, hey, listen, did you taste any of these? And then you scratch your head. I never got the time. I mean, I'm just spending time just collecting recipes, reorganizing them, clearing them in my head. And I've got the spices recipe, I've got the liquids recipe, and whatever it is, right? So we kind of get into that zone, and then we are caught up into that zone. We have really not implemented any of those recipes. In other words, tried them and said, this really works, or how do I tune this for my specification? The recipe is great. Maybe I need a little more salt, maybe a little more spice, or maybe none of that. So what's my point here? My point is, this is where philosophy or religion matures into spirituality or sadhana. If we don't begin to implement that, if we don't begin to implement the philosophy, the belief system that is forming a foundation. In other words, we have the foundation of the house set, but we are not building the home on that. Or even if the home is there, we are not going to live in that. So the idea is, if we don't begin to practice that, then it doesn't become street smart. Then all our philosophy and learning and faith remains as belief. And then we say faith shakes in when life troubles me, my belief is shaken, I go through the ups and downs of life. We experience all of that because we never had a chance to truly implement and realize for our own selves, what is my experience? What is my first-hand experience? If I believe that the self is infinite, if I believe I am the self that is eternal, whatever that definitions are at this point in your mind, in your heart, then have I experienced that even a little bit? Or are we pushing it to some kind of afterlife thing? Saying someday we will do it, someday we will realize it, and that someday never comes. You're 20 or 30 when you're in this path, you begin, I guess, start questioning, and then by 40, 50, you're an ardent reader. Then by 60s, you build a philosophy, and 70 and 80, and then your senses are failing, you're getting old, and not you guys are all young, I'm just saying. This is what happens, right? And then we're like, wait a minute, whole life has passed and I've never experienced, so maybe something is waiting for me in the afterlife. We kind of live in this Santa Claus zone, thinking something is going to happen sometime. And we miss the magic of life. We miss the magic of living fully, living in an empowered manner, living in an enlightened way. And that was a purpose of, I believe this in my heart and soul, that the purpose of spirituality or sadhana was to help you and me live life fully. What you and I experience through the senses is one fraction of what we can truly explore in the multidimensional consciousness that we are part of, right? So I'm just setting up stage there. So for me, philosophy is a very important part of it. Religion is an important part of it, but it is just the beginning. And then the whole game for each one of us is when we start practicing. Whatever we define practices as whatever. So today I'm going to share with you what has inspired me and how I look at these practices, the spiritual practice, and what I consider a really wonderful way of a sadhana as a lifestyle, spiritual lifestyle. So let's begin there. So like I said, everything begins with philosophy. So I'm going to first establish the base of where my thinking comes from. And for those of you who have, many of you are enlightened in this group because you have been part of this group for a long time. You've had great eminent speakers, enlightened souls coming and talking. So bear with me if it sounds like I'm preaching to a choir. But nevertheless, I have to offer these as a base. The base is the primordial elements. This is derived from Sankhya Yoga. The Sankhya philosophy is very simple. Hey, listen, what is this creation all about? What are the elements, the primordial elements that bring about creation? And then how am I part of this creation? And then once I understand that, how do I then live in harmony with this creation? How can I exploit these elements to live more fully? As simple as that. Okay. So we'll begin with what appeals to us, what makes sense to us, rather than I can give you a whole philosophical discourse on Atma, Paramatma, and all of that, which is very, very real. But then, like I said, those are recipes that each one of us have to experiment with. All right. What are the primordial elements? Some of you, like I said, it's very simple. Some of you, it might be very new, but bear with me. Akasha is one. And I'll talk about how we can actually implement it in our everyday life. All right. So Akasha is ether, is the container for everything that we see in this material plane. But Akasha is a word. It's not just space or ether as we understand. We look up into the sky and say all that is space. Yes, that is. But here the word Akasha is multidimensional. It contains universes and universes. It is like that the multidimensional universe theory that science is now trying to experiment with and trying to bring it down into a mathematical formula in quantum and things like that. So there is a dimension there. There are many dimensions. All of that eventually is contained in Akasha. Okay. And we'll come to that understanding a little more better in the short presentation. Then there is the Vayu principle. The Vayu is air, gases that you and I can relate. These are the primordial building blocks of each of these have a physical dimension to it. And then there are more subtler dimensions, but we'll stick to the physical dimension in today's discussion because that is something you and I can relate to, right? You cannot question these things as how do you know this? And how do I know this? And things like that. This is all just common sense kind of a thing. And I like that common sense approach, which Sanatana Dharma Vedanta offers. So there is Vayu or air that is all around us. I call it air, but it's air, gases, hydrogen, oxygen, all of that, right? And then you have the Agni or the Tejas that we call it. That is fire, electricity, electromagnetism, all of that comes, plasma, all of that comes under this concept. There's another element, building blocks of everything that you see here. Then comes the Apaha or Jala. Jala is the water element, all liquids that you see. Molten lava is Jala. Water, salt water, fresh water, blood, all of this is Jala. And then the last and the least, I wouldn't say last, but not the least, last and the least is Prithvi. Prithvi is matter, the building block of matter, atom. We call it the earth generally, right? Earth is a representation because if you see in the entire cosmos, earth is like an atom, a small part, minuscule part of this never-ending expanse of space. So this is how Sankhya, Vedanta, and I subscribe to that. And so I relate to the universe around me. It forms my foundation. That this is what it is all about. This is where I need to work. This is where I need to take off from. Okay. So this forms the basis. This is like the philosophy or religion, if you want to call it. But this is what it is. So in the Vedic times, there was a civilization many thousands, many centuries ago. Again, debatable as to how old they were, but nobody can debate upon the existence of that kind of civilization, which was very advanced. temples and architecture and all of that are proofs of that, right? And that is towards the end of that advancement. So you can understand way before that what level of advancement they had, where without technology they discovered the existence of grahas, or celestial celestial bodies in the sky. I wouldn't call them planets, because sun is not really a planet, moon is not really a planet, but they never called it planets. They call it grahas. Grahas are those celestial bodies that have gravitational energies. So that's where the word gravity comes from. Grahana means gravity. That's why we have Surya Grahana and Chandra Grahana and all of that. Those are all gravitational powers, energies. Those gravitational energies have influence on each other planets. And since we are part of this Earth planet, there is a belief system, again, which I strongly subscribe to, which has been completely and thoroughly misused and abused. That's called Vedic astrology, but we will leave that aside. Nevertheless, the fundamental principle there is the electromagnetism and the magnetic energy, the gravitational energy that holds all these planets together, and we are part of that gravitational field, and therefore movements of the planets around the zodiac affect our psyche, affect the earth, affect the atmosphere around the earth, and therefore our lives, and therefore our psyche and individual psyches, and so on and so forth. Because right now where you are, right now where you're sitting at that point, if you call in the geographical space in cosmos, nobody else is. And therefore you at this point and this moment are uniquely tuned into that gravitational field. You're positioned in that field in a unique way than your spouse, who might be 5 feet away, or your child who might be 10 feet away watching this program on her phone, right? They are in a different field. And therefore, Vedic astrology is very unique and very individualized. So we leave that. But that forms the basis of understanding. All right, let's come to brass tacks now. Sadhana, or lifestyle, Akasha, ether. You might say, all right, okay, yeah, Akasha is all over the place, ether and space and all of that. So how am I going to relate? I know, okay, space is great. So what is the sadhana there? I mean, what do I do there? First, we have to understand that our bodies are a representation of these 5 elements. We are not out of the 5 elements. We are not part of the 5 elements. We are, all of these elements are represented in us. So therefore, we, this body, this mind, this psyche, and all of us, this personality, let me call it that way, right? You, me, each one of us are a microscopic representation of the whole cosmos. Everything that you want to see out there is understood here. That's where it all began. This turning point came to me when we were with Baba at one point, and he said, how did the saints and sages know about the existence of the cosmos? How did they know Saturn was furthest away from the sun? How did they even know there was a planet called Saturn? How did they know the diameter? And there are documents which actually specify the diameter of Jupiter, the distance between Earth and Jupiter, Earth and Saturn. It's mind-boggling, right? And they're all 90, 95%, 98% close to what NASA is finding today with all this technology. And therefore, if there is a discrepancy, I tell myself one day NASA will come to the point where they will get it more accurate. But that's how it is, because without any of these equipments that you and I rely on, they were able to document these. So what was their secret? How was they able to do that? Right? Simple question. How? Nobody can deny that we knew the earth was round. We never knew earth was, we never believed earth was flat for generations, for centuries. Bhuloka Sastra means the very way we call it Bhuloka and all of that is, there is a definition of it being round and it being suspended in the cosmos. So how did they know that? Baba asked us. How did they have access to this knowledge? Because we were asking him, we need computers, and we need the science boys. At that time, the computers are not so popular, because I'm talking of 80s, early 80s, when I was doing my PhD. And so We were asking for those, those black screen computers. We were typing MS-DOS prompts or whatever it was. So he was saying, what is all this y'all want? That is not true education, right? We didn't get that point, but there's one thing he made. The point he made there was, and then he mentioned all of this. And then he said, how did they know this? We kept quiet. He said they knew one thing, and pay attention to this, because this is the key. This is what really made me start thinking in these lines. He said they knew one thing by which everything else was known. And I started listening. I was like, wait, what? Just one thing? That's all I need to know? One thing. No, one thing. Everything else is known. And we were waiting for the answer. And he said that one thing is the I. Everything that you want to understand in the cosmos is here. Here, meaning in this body, beginning with the body. And once I understand this, once I appreciate this, once I begin to live a lifestyle appreciating this understanding, then the cosmic wisdom that everything else is automatically falls in place. But that's why I said earlier, but we live in a prison wall. We have isolated ourselves from the rest of the cosmos. We think somehow I am different from this. I'm a small victim, and this is a huge a circumstance that I'm being put in, right? Anyway, so Akasha, where is it physically located? The ENT space. Where is inner space inside your body? Where is space inside your body? In the ears and in the throat. And of course, nostrils as well, but that's always filled with air. So if you talk of emptiness and just space, it is ears and the throat. There is room for water to go in, air to go in and out, right? It's empty. So there is Akasha inside of us. Sankhya goes to a further extent to explain what are the sense organs that are directly associated with this particular space. See, this link we have to understand, and then we'll begin to implement a mindful lifestyle. What are the sense organs? Okay, so I understood this and this. So what do I do with it? What are the sense organs? Ears, it makes sense. Mouth makes sense. In this space, it's very, very simple. Ears and mouth. Hearing and speaking. The sounds that go into my ears and the sounds that come out of my mouth. Because if you understand this philosophy of Vedanta, when they explain cosmology or creation, they say the first thing that came about was Akasha. And in that Akasha, there is what is called Shabda. Shabda means sound. In this context, the word sound again is an incomplete definition of the word Shabda. Shabda is more vibration. Sound is a manifestation of vibrations at a particular frequency, right? The sounds can exist at a much different frequencies that you and I can't even hear, but they're still sounds. So there must be a fundamental vibrational frequency that gave birth to this thing that you and I call creation. All the other elements and everything comes from this Akasha space. And Akasha itself exists in consciousness. That again, like I said, that's a philosophy. We will not go there, because then that is a theory, right? But this container is therefore this element therefore is an important medium to experience sound. And sound or vibration was the first thing that happened for creation to evolve. Now that's a theory, right? How does it apply to you and me? Look around you. Look at the chair you're sitting on. Look at the glasses you're wearing, perhaps. Look at the clothes you're wearing. Look at every object that is around you. Everything was first a vibrational pattern. We call it a thought in the Akashic space inside of us. That's where it began. Everything that is materialized around you as objects to begin with was at one point a thought in somebody's mind or an idea which had not even formed, latently lying, waiting to be explored. So this Akasha is full of that. Where is this Akasha? In us. It's full of latent ideas waiting to explode into reality. So creation begins from Akasha for you and me means simply this. And once I understand this, I will say, wow, sound is the basis of all physical realities. Ears and mouth. So now that understanding, translate that into a lifestyle. I call it the Akasha lifestyle. All right. Once you understand this, you'll follow the same pattern for other elements. Okay. So this Akasha lifestyle will be understanding the importance of the very source of creation. So now we look at ourselves and we say, this job, yeah, what kind of job I'm in? I'm constantly tired. I'm so busy, or business is getting on to me, and maybe I'm complaining, maybe I'm not. There are some parts of life which I like, some parts of our physical reality, quote unquote, we don't like. Relationships, people in our lives, circumstances in our life, objects in our life, colors in our life, food in our lives, health, body, all of that are physical realities. How did they materialize in our lives? Why are you and I in a situation we may like, we may not like? That's besides the point. There is a physical reality. We call it, let's be practical, let's be real. We say that, right? What does that mean? Look around you, the room you're sitting in, the color of on the walls. Where did that come from? You. And where did that originate? In your inner space. And therefore, you and I are architects of our reality. This is the fundamental building block of this fantastic philosophy. If we understand that everything that in my life that I want to materialize begins here, and that in order to make that manifest, I pay attention to two things, ears and mouth, the sounds that go in, the sounds that come out. If I understand the importance of sound in my inner space as thoughts, then I begin to live a mindful lifestyle, respecting the Akashic space within me. That's the first step. I watch what sounds go into my ears. We talk of television, right, today. We talk of satsangs like these. We talk of programs and music and all of this. Ask yourself, what is the quality, general quality of sounds that go in through my ears? What is it? I'm not asking you to judge as good and bad sound. These are all compartments we have made. What is good sound? What is bad sound? And we become more and more conditioned in our mindset of this kind of judgment. I'm not even talking about that. Simply understand the quality and analyze what kind of sounds go in and what kind of sounds come out of your mouth. For example, if somebody says, hey, how are you today? Bas chal raha hai, it's going on one day at a time. Nikal rahi hai zindagi. We say that life is going on somehow. Guess what? If that is the sound coming out of your mouth, if that is a sound you're entertaining, just let's go on, one day at a time. That will be your reality, because that is the building block of reality. Then you will drift along. Everybody is getting a job, I'll get a job. Everybody is earning money, let me also put all my energy earning money. Everybody is buying a car, let me also buy a car. Everybody is doing this. You become a driftwood, you become a sheep following the masses, just like that. Because why? It's chalta hai, life is going on. So one has to explore. You have to explore. Each one of us has to explore our inner space to find out what are these thoughts I'm entertaining. I read in one very nice blog many years ago. He said, question the story you're telling yourself and the story you're telling others. You will understand the secret of the reality you're creating around you. What is the story you tell yourself in the aloneness? What is it that you're saying? Oh, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. I want, when it's hot, we want it cold. When it's cold, we want it hot, always wanting what is not. Are we in that kind of mindset? Then that is the reality. The reality will always keep you wanting for something, will always keep you unsatisfied, because that is a thought I am entertaining, and that thought manifests eventually into reality, like this clicker that I have, or the mouse or the computer and everything else. One cannot deny that every physical existence, every circumstance was born in the Akashic space. And so if I become mindful of the sound that comes out of my mouth, when somebody asks me, how am I? I'm doing fine. Thank you. How are you? How's everything? Finances? And everything is perfectly fine. Everything that I want at this moment is given to me. I'm grateful. If that is a sound you entertain in your inner space, if that is a sound that's coming out, again, not because of good and bad at all, but the quality of that sound, then that is the sound that will eventually manifest in your reality. How long will it take? It depends on how intense, how pure, and how consistent is your awareness of that integration. That's why Baba would call it constant integrated awareness. I'm aware of my Akashic space, and I'm going to be mindful of the sounds that go into my ears. If I watch television shows which are full of Saas Bahu type of thing, and everybody is dressing well and all of that, but then there is jealousy, there's hatred, there is plots and subplots and this and that, and it just goes on and on and on, then those are the sounds that are building my reality. Then I defined, oh, this is comedy, let's watch it. This is serious, and this is horror, and this is all of that definition. Where did it come from? It came from the sounds. So I can go on like this, right? So here I'm just opening doors for you to think, not telling you what to do, but think about how can you make Akasha your lifestyle, and what kind of Akashic lifestyle, if you want to call it that way. What is the sadhana that you would do, the Akasha sadhana? How mindful can you be for listening and speaking? Let's go to Vayu. Where does Vayu exist? So in creation, they said from Akasha comes Vayu. Now forget the cosmos and the creation. Let's apply it here. When Akasha is in this place, right below that is what? Lungs. So where is the location of Vayu in your body? Primordially, lungs. Lungs is your home for this Vayu principles, the Vayu Tattva, the Vayu element. What are the sense organs, or how are we associated? It's interesting here. Sankhya talks of skin, sparsha. Sparsha is a Sanskrit word, touch. So sabda was one. Then this is sparsha. Sparsha is touch. How do you experience touch? Touch is skin, right? So Vayu represents air, like Vayu represents life. Even I know it now, especially in the last couple of years with all this COVID thing, we understand Vayu, right? Absence of Vayu is no life. So when somebody want to check if somebody is alive or dead, what we do, we first touch them. We touch and feel the pulse, feeling, touch. So touch is very important here. Vayu, we feel the breeze and air here. Vayu, the very principle of life, is felt through touch. So skin is one. The other one, interestingly, the other organ, the sense organ, because these are technically called karmendriyas and jnanendriyas, senses of organs and senses of action and senses of perception. But I don't want to get into that because we don't have that kind of time to get into those technical details. But it's enough for us to understand in a practical way. So we have skin, and then we have hands. Hands are moving. They move in the same place. Hands create movement. Movement creates air. So, when we say, oh, Babri, it's too hot, yeah, it's very hot, put on the fan, we say, and we start moving this because this creates air. So hand movement creates air. So there's a link between hands, air means breath. Now you might say, okay, that's far-fetched. How do I connect? Think of that. When you're nervous, if you are to give a public talk, or if you're sitting in front of a Zoom camera like this, and suddenly somebody says, speak something here, and your hands may not be seen in the camera, but what you might be doing is this. Hari Bapre, what do I say here? And you're doing this, and your hands are a little shivering, and you're shaking. Hands are connected with the breath. When you're shaky, when you're nervous, I'm just giving an example. When you're nervous, your breath is shaky. When your breath is shaky, it's reflected in your hands. And so think of that connection. That's why we say when we are nervous, when we are upset, we say, take a deep breath. The Vayu principle calms us down. This is where the practice of mudras came into being and is very important. By understanding the link between my fingers and my Vayu, I can control the Vayu element. I can channelize the Vayu element so that my Akashic space, again, those sounds that I create in the Akashic space will slowly find manifestation. They have to find manifestation into Prithvi, right? Eventually. So from that Akashic space, from sound, I have to translate it through Vayu. When it comes into Vayu, I need to control that Vayu and then nurture that sound that I've created through Vayu. So now you understand the combination of air and sound. Now mantra chantings or the chanting of bijaksharas and all of that forms an important part, because now I am bringing sound into my consciousness, focusing on a sound, and then I am doing it along with my breath. I'm channelizing that. So that is one part of a much more broader lifestyle practice. So there are so many practices for each of these elements, right? I'm just throwing open these ideas for you to think. So you have pranayama and breathing exercise and all of that directly related to Vayu, but then understanding that my connection with my hands and my fingers are so important. So do you reach out your hands to ask? Do you reach to take your hands to give? Ask yourself that question. If I'm always asking here, my hand goes like this. If my hand goes like this, my breath is shallow. Hands are linked to the quality of your breath. And the quality of your breath, again, goes back and affects the quality of your thinking. So this is how beautifully we are integrated. So skin and hands. So the Vayu sadhana, therefore, are how do I enhance? How do I maintain? How do I learn to control this Vayu principle in my body? How can I be more conscious of touch and hands in general? Can I move my hands a little more? Can I move them mindfully? And can I be very mindful of what or who I touch? Just mindful. There's no such thing as, oh, I touched him, I got bad vibrations and good. These are all some weird conditions we form ourselves and get more into judgments than getting out of judgments, judgmental mindset. But think of that. You know, when I go shopping, do I touch everything and anything just mindlessly? Then it's a mindless practice of the prana, the air, the Vayu just drifting in your body without any control. Hands represent that. Watch the movement of hands in your children. Watch the movement of fingers in yourself at all times. Observe when you're watching a movie. If it's a tense moment in the movie, your hands get tight. Your fingers are the first one that tighten. And that represents the shallowness in your breath. Watch that connection, understand the connection first, and then you begin to live a more mindful lifestyle. All right. Then we come to Agni. I know we are running out of time. So let me put it all out there and go through that. You understood now what it is. Agni, the physical location is the abdomen. Just below that now, fire. Fire is what? Has the power to transform something into something else, correct? So in our body, the digestive juices in the stomach region, in the abdominal region, I just call it abdomen, just for a more general way to relate to that. But it is the digestive juices and the intestines and the stomach area where solid matter is converted into waste matter and into energy, right? Only fire has the ability to convert from one to another. So digestive juices, the acids, are like that fire, and therefore we call that the fire element in our body. What if you see that in the slide, it says eyes and feet. Eyes, the ability to see. There is light. I don't know if this disturbance is from me or just bear with me. I don't know. It seems to be. All right. Anyway, I'll continue. So eyes is the ability to see. So if there is no light, if there's no fire in the sun, I can't see. In darkness, we can't see, right? And therefore, eyes obviously are an important element in understanding a connection to the eye. So like, for example, if you're sick, you go to the doctor first, he'll check your eyes to see what is the color of your eyes. right? Life, the very life principle in our body. The eyes go like this when a person dies, right? The eyeballs move. So eyes are a representation of the health in your stomach. The health of your whole body is determined by the ability to digest, the ability to maintain the Agni principle in our body. So there's a whole lifestyle now around food. How do I maintain what kind of food I can eat, and so on and so forth. Incidentally, I have a series that I have started, and it goes on. It's called Kaibalya Marga classes, and we just do it. It's all online. It's the playlists are there, Kaibalya Marga playlist, where I've discussed each of these, what practices, and each of them in detail. So we are still learning that. We have just about touching the Agni principle, talked about food and lifestyle and so on. Just FYI, if you want to check it out in the KYG channel, you can go and check it out. But that is the principle there. So there is a whole lifestyle. And then feet. Why is feet? Just because they had hands, they covered hands and Vayu, you think they bought feet for Agni? Just like, okay, we don't fit in anywhere, let's fit it for Agni. No. You know, when you get cold, what do? They first rub your feet to create warmth in the body. You could be wearing the most expensive fur coat, if you will. God forbid you don't get an animal fur, but some kind of synthetic, and you wear the most expensive one in a cold winter and you set out. But if you don't have shoes, it's of no use, because cold gets in. Your feet have to be warm, right? To protect. That's why the first thing we protect is our feet in winter and so on. So the feet is where the Agni escapes from the body. The fire escapes from the body. The feet is where fire comes into the body. You try jumping, do jumping jacks for, do 100 jumping jacks simply in your own place, and you see how your heart goes up, your body gets warmed. So warm-ups, we call it, right? In exercise, moving of the feet warms up the body, increases the Agni, increases digestion. They say go for long walks. What is long walk? Using your feet. What does that do? Increases the Agni. Agni increases the power of digestion. When you're digesting well, you sleep well, you breathe well. And when you breathe well, it creates the ability to entertain better sounds in your Akasha. So there is a whole lifestyle around Agni. Then comes Jala, a very interesting concept here. The physical location is the lower abdomen, below the belly, right up to the sexual organs, kidneys, bladder, urinary bladder, the sexual organs. So where you have bile, seminal juices, all of this are liquids in our body, tears, sweat, blood, of course, and all of that. You have the 7 rasas, as they call it in Ayurveda, right? So all of that becomes part of the liquids in the body. Interestingly, tongue is one of the most important one, which a dead person is, the tongue is dry, correct? So the tongue being immersed in liquid saliva is the key for health and all of the other things. So tongue is predominantly connected to Jala Tattva in the body, the water element in the body. Tongue and sexual organ, the genitals. Why? Because urine passes out of that, seminal juices pass out of that, and so on. And so for the sexual organ and the tongue, these are the two connecting. One is the Jnana Indriya, the tongue, which is Sabda, Sparsha, Rupa was eyes, and then Rasa. Rasa is taste. So Rasa, taste, tongue. And the physical organ connected there. Of course, tongue is also a physical organ, but it represents Rasa, taste, and the ability of sexual organ. Both are predominant organs, tongue and the sexual organs predominantly give us the quote unquote, what we call experience. If I eat something, I truly experience that. The tongue is that ability. I can talk to you about apple, right? Or I can talk to you about the beauty and the taste of pomegranate and all of this, or the mango. Apples, which we miss so much here. I don't even know what we get now as real apples or something. They just sell something and call it apples. Anyway, apples, mangoes, I can explain to you and describe to you, or you could do that to me. But I'll say, yeah, it doesn't make sense. I want to experience that. And so what do? I bite into a mango, and then call that experience. So tongue has that ability to to create that experience. So now we are talking of something really beginning to manifest as experience in our lives. Now, if you wonder, why is this Vedanta and spiritual sadhana and all of this is so full of discipline and don't eat this and fast in this and reduce salt in this and this and that? Why? We have forgotten, most of the people have forgotten that, and we have lost ourselves into some religious belief, thinking we are pleasing some God out there. That we leave that aside, okay? But important thing here is, I do that to learn to develop the ability to control this water element in my body. Water is very powerful. You and I know that a hurricane is water, right? Water is soft and gentle. You can wash your face, but the same water can destroy our homes and everything, God forbid. If there's a hurricane, a cyclone, a flood, for example, uncontrolled, a river, a gentle river, life-giving river, like even the Ganges, when it's uncontrolled, it can take life. The very same thing that gives life can take life. And therefore, the water element is a very powerful element we need to learn to control. And therefore, we control the tongue. And by controlling the tongue, we talk of be mindful of my addictions. I have to be mindful of my addiction. Why am I so mindlessly addicted to a certain taste? Why? Ask yourself that if you are, and then see what you can do about that. And then that is linked to the sexual organs. So I'm not talking of abstinence and all of that stuff. That is all, again, we got into those conditioned mindsets, good and bad and all of that. Just control the tongue and watch everything else. The idea of water being controlled in your body, you'll be able to harness the electricity in water. The prana in the water gets pushed upwards in all these 5 elements. Now we are coming to 2 elements, Jala and Prithvi, water and earth, which are flowing downwards, goes with gravity. If our consciousness is caught in what do I eat, what is tasty, what is all of this in the tongue, in other words, just senses around me, pleasures of the senses as we call it, not because they are bad, only because I'm not able to control the water element, and the water element goes down with gravity. So my consciousness is trapped. In yogic terms, we call it being trapped in the lower 2 chakras, because water and earth are very close. Again, so there is a water lifestyle, which involves controlling of the tongue, controlling of taste, understanding what it is. The word control is perhaps not the right one. That's why the word sadhana is the best. Understanding how to manage this power that lies inherent in water. And I'll finish with Prithvi. Prithvi is the physical location, is the anus, right at the bottom. Why? I'm sorry, legs. The legs is where? Why legs? Because legs are, if you see below, there is below the waist, it's just pure muscle. Pure muscle. Of course, there is water and all of that. There's blood flowing and all of that. But it's pure muscle, pure Prithvi. Solid muscle. If the legs are cut off, you and I can still live. Without Prithvi, we can still live. Without matter, there is life. So think about that. But legs, predominantly Prithvi. Waist and below. Where do you and I put weight first? It's in that waist region, right? Because legs don't move, legs become bigger, waist becomes bigger, Prithvi becomes heavier, and therefore we slowly get, as we age, we get drawn back to the earth. Gravity. It's all about gravity. Sense association of Prithvi is nose and anus. Anus, why? Anus is because fecal matter, solid matter passes out of the body through there, right? And that solid matter has a powerful quality. What is that quality? I don't need to explain this further. It's smell. Right? Smell is a powerful quality of the earth. The fecal matter has a powerful, strong quality, smell. When you upset stomach and you have diarrhea, the smell is horrendous, correct? Smell indicates the state of health in your body and all of that. Smell is an important thing. When you return home after a long vacation, the smell in your house indicates whether there is a dead rat or no, or we say, there is something, I can smell it. There is something dead somewhere, we say, right? Or there is some rotten vegetable lying in a corner. It started rotting, and what happens? It smells. Smell indicates the existence of a physical object. And therefore, only smell, only earth, only matter has that quality of smell. Water by itself doesn't smell. By itself. Fire by itself, no smell. Air by itself, no smell. Space, of course, no smell. Quality of smell applies to earth. So our lifestyle on earth, Prithvi, is where we start. So the lifestyle starts from what I can deal with, my body, my Prithvi element, and then my water element, and then my Agni element, and then the Vayu element, and the space element. It's not necessarily one after the other, but it is where I can understand and start. What do I eat? How do I think? And so on and so forth. So there's a fantastic lifestyle that makes mindful lifestyle is not a boring one. It's very exciting, actually. It makes you aware of, wow, my interconnectedness with the elements. And when I begin to live that lifestyle mindfully, I am actually connecting to the elements outside. And therefore, I'm able to control the elements. That's what it is. That's what yoga and siddhi and all of that is. It is not some power you got simply because of some chanting you did and all of that. We want to believe those fantastic stories, but it doesn't work like that. It works through hard work. There is no shortcuts to that. And that hard work is our sadhana. When we do that, we begin to understand the elements. We will never misuse those elements. Why? Because we know if I misuse the earth outside, I'm actually misusing my own body. And today's global warming is a fine example of that. All right. I know I perhaps went way beyond time. Okay, I did. So bear with me.
No, not at all. Actually, you still.
Okay, I
You're
have some time,
not.
but yeah, good. No, I wanted to give some time for some kind of discussion if we can, based on this. So let me offer my finishing thoughts, and then we will see how to take it. All
Probably
of this,
you can. Sorry to interrupt you. Probably you
yeah, yeah.
can give what do you say? Insight on how do we control these things, elements, as a practice for each element, if possible.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. I will come to that in a bit, but I just want to put this word in our consciousness before we go there. The Sanskrit word is kritagnyata, gratitude. The ultimate attitude or the underlying attitude towards this whole practice is not fear, is not getting somewhere, and all of that. Is not to please a God out there, but it is gratitude. Just gratitude. You might say, okay, gratitude, grateful to whom? Just gratitude. Gratitude that we are able to experience these 5 elements outside and inside. Grateful that we are given a chance at every moment of every day of our lives, a chance to experience our integration. And that idea of gratitude and thanksgiving forms the right attitude for this practice, forms the basis for this practice. Because if we do this, otherwise it becomes a paranoia. It becomes like, Are Babre, this is crazy. I have to watch what I think, what I eat, what I breathe, and how I sit and how I stand. This is too much for me. I'm just going to give up. That is not the point here is not to push yourself beyond a limit. The point is to understand. Wait a minute, let's understand this. And then with that sense of gratitude, we begin to get onto this path. So like I said, Akasha, for example, the space. Let me get out of this. So Akasha, the space is where sound comes in. So one thing is you think of sounds that are pleasing. Sounds, again, sounds are different. Sound is different from music. Music is an expression of sound, but you have to go beyond music to experience sound in its prime way, if you will, in the vibrational part of it, the frequency part of it, and so on. So you and I have to explore that. I've done some explanations. I'm going to keep sharing that in the Kaivalya Marga class more in detail, because each of these have a lot of things that we can delve into. Understand the vibrational frequency, examine the tone of your voice and the voice of others. You will be able to tune into a lot more than the words that are spoken, the words that are heard. There's a lot more that happens in the level of sound. The words can be the same. I could be reading from a teleprompter and reading it out to you, or I could be speaking it from my heart and sharing with you. And those words may be exactly the same, but the tone, the vibrational frequency that is communicated is very subtle. And one may be able to tune into one, somebody else may be tuned into the other, but that kind of tuning in we have to understand. We have to become more mindful of the sounds that go in, because that, for me, that forms the basis of everything else. You don't have to do that and perfect that in order to get there, but I just have to become more mindful. Then the second one, an important thing, is the water element. The water element in our body, the ability to channelize water. So there are in yoga, the practice is kriyas. So there is in these lifestyle practices, in terms of yoga, the way only way I practice and I can teach, or I can share rather, is in yogic practices, hatha yoga asanas form the Prithvi element. So this is a ritualistic practice. I call yogasana also a ritual, means done every day. That's all. But that doesn't mean that's an end by itself. That is one part of an overall lifestyle. But even let us begin with that kind of ritual. So yoga asanas, asanas where you hold and you become completely aware of the body, you're tuning into the earth. A simple standing on your 2 feet, bare feet on the grass below, with earth below you, feeling your connection with the earth in itself is a great practice. So asana, being steady, is a practice for Prithvi. When I begin to move, like in Surya Namaskar, okay, we all have heard the sun salutations, right? Even if you don't do it, you have heard of sun salutations or Surya Namaskar, the series of 12 steps because the zodiac is 12 in number and 12 months in the year. So number 12 is associated with the sun. So 12 steps is one to the other. When we flow in Surya Namaskar, we lean back, come down, and then we go into Namaskar, and then we come up, and then we go, all of this we'll do. We are channelizing water. Water begins to flow properly in our body. In other words, blood flow. That's why we say move, yaar, let the blood flow, increase towards your heart and let the heart pump and so on. Because they're all interrelated. Don't treat them as watertight compartments, but I'm just giving predominant exercises that you can do to control water element. So there are exercises in yoga for kriya. They're called kriyas. So I call that the Maruti yoga on Thursdays. It's not easy. It's not for beginners. So don't watch a video and jump into it right away. There are beginner yoga classes also we offer at KYG Yoga channel. Everything is free. I mean, these are priceless wisdom. I can never do the sin of charging, simply because if I charge you, even if I charge you 5,000 rupees a class, I will be the one who will be limiting and putting a price tag to something which I believe is priceless. I cannot do that. So they are all free at your own leisure. Please look at them. So kriyas. Then comes the Agni. There are bandhas. There are other kriyas that you can do, Nauli kriya and Udyana bandha and so on and so forth, which activate the Agni element. The Agni element begins to draw. See, Agni converts, you throw a piece of wood into the fire, what happens? That wood is converted into energy, right? That's how we draw energy from water. Water, electricity is drawn and converted. So Agni draws our consciousness that is trapped in the lower 2 elements most of the time. How do I look? What do I wear? What do I eat? How tasty is the food, right? If you go out shopping, it's grocery, it's something to eat, something to wear. We are caught in the lower 2 chakras. Our consciousness is trapped there. We live entire lives sometimes. Then we get creative outbursts. Of course we do. So our consciousness goes up, gets a creative intuition, and then we come down to how do I, we come back to this. This is our comfort zone. Sleep, eat, sleep again, dress well, all this kind of thing. And all of this idea of getting more money, building more home, having bank account, all of that comes from security, fear of losing what? So all of that comes from the basic core fundamental instinct to survive. So we are only caught up in that. We are not going beyond that. But Agni practices, when we start examining how do I increase the Agni, for example, raw food. When I eat raw food, I am giving exercise for my digestive fire to actually digest the food. If I cook the food outside, The outside fire is cooking the food. And then I eat it. My fire, the Agni in my body, has little work to do. So guess what is going to happen? The digestive fire slowly decreases. Look at old people in your family or elsewhere. Look at them. They cannot digest the food that you are able to digest. You cannot digest food that you were able to digest when you were a child or when you were young. Young children can eat anything. 20-year-old, you say, "Arey, all that is humbug, yaar. I can eat everything." They think they can eat everything throughout, but they can't, because of that quality of that food that goes in at that time, predominantly being cooked and all of that. Like, we have all this fancy restaurants and pizzas and all of that. We talk about everything almost is cooked, right? We are not giving exercise for our internal fire. So the fire that is burning brightly at 10 years and 15 and 20 slowly begins to diminish as we age. And the fire eventually extinguishes itself. That is why in the Gita, Krishna said, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva. I am the Vaishvanara Agni in your bodies. He directly went and said, I am the fire element in your body. I am the digestive fire in your body. So if he is the fire in my body, then what is it am I offering to my fire? How do I keep the fire alive? So if I let the fire in my body cook the food that I eat, then we got the secret of maintaining the Agni, apart from other practices. So try and see if you can include a raw salad. I'm not talking of tasteless food, please. You can make it very tasty with spices and put lemon and this and that. You can make it like a chaat, if you will, like Bombay, you call it chaat, but not without the fried stuff and all of that. Just pure fresh. Squeeze a little lemon, put some spices. I talk as if I make it. I don't. Maya does all of that. Incidentally, you didn't see Maya. Come and say hello to them. I'm like the typical guy. Mere ko chai banana aata hai. I know to make a cup of tea. That too because we have a machine. But she's the one. She's the Shakti in my life. But thank you, Maya. So that's Maya, all of you. And so the idea here is, how do we maintain that Agni? And so she makes amazing, tasty salads. You can do too. I mean, Indian housewives or Indian people in general, you give a piece of cardboard, we know how to make it tasty and chew it and eat it. So we have the fantastic spices, which are an important ingredient that we need in our body, which keeps the Agni alive. And so be creative. Think of how we can do that. But if we only eat cooked food, then Agni is on its way down. So think about that. Then there is Agni in thoughts and same water in our thoughts and all of that. So like I said, that's why I did it in a series of classes, understanding this more and more in detail. Then comes Vayu. So there are bandhas and all of that in yoga that as we practice. Then there is Vayu, of course, pranayama, and exercise and breathing, and in the asana, how to breathe. So I'm in the asana, in the kriyas, I'm learning to control the pranic energy. The more subtle we go, the more difficult it is to control. I use the word control again and again, but bear with me, the word is not, somehow the word control seems to have a negative impact in our subconscious mind. Channelize is perhaps the right word, but nevertheless, I'm just putting it out there so we become conscious of these sounds that go in and park themselves in our head. So we learn to channelize these energies. So the more subtler they become, the more difficult it is to channelize them, to nurture them, to maintain that purity around them. So Vayu is that. So pranayama, breathing practices, there are many. In fact, I did a 111-day, we offered at KYG, Maya and I, 111-day Hanuman Yagna. When this COVID was really at its peak, we said, let's do something. And so the first part of that, about half an hour every day, we did kriyas. We did breathing, because Vayu is represented by the Hanuman energy. And so the concept of Hanuman is what? Vayu Putra. And he's strong. He is wise and all of that. What does that mean? It means if I understand the essence, the Putra in me, in other words, the essence of Vayu, the essence of air element in me is strength. Bhima was, again, another character from the Puranas, the ethics, Itihasas. So Bhima is again the son of Vayu, again strong. So everywhere we have essence of Vayu is always signified as strength, tremendous strength. So if we understand if we can channelize the Vayu principle in us, guess what? Health and all of that happens. When you breathe out, more than 75% of your toxins in the body are eliminated through your exhalations alone. Have you ever thought of that? Yes, they do go out of from urine and sweat and all of that, but that's a small portion. The main source of eliminating toxins in our body is Vayu. So in traditional pranayama, they say examine the quality of your exhalations. Nobody teaches that these days. Something for you to take home right here and now. Examine the quality of your exhalation. Examine the length of your exhalations. Let your exhalations be longer than your inhalations. I breathe in for 4 counts. I breathe out for 8 counts. 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out. Can I practice that for a few minutes every day? So I made a Ramanama Pranayama videos, which are there again in my channel. Please go to these channels and this channel and explore if you are interested in taking these. So in Ram Nam Pranayama, I'm creating a sound called Ram, Ram, Ram. The word Ra is associated with the Agni. So the Agni is pulled up and deposited there. And then I am doing it along with breathing. I chant 4 Rams in, 8 Rams out. You don't need a video for that, right? You can do it yourself. So 4 times in, 8 times out. So what happens with 8 times out? I'm learning to exhale more. I'm learning to let go. I'm learning to detoxify. If I do that for at least 16 minutes, 8 to 16 minutes a day, then health will come naturally. Why? Because you're constantly cleaning the body. But don't expect these things to happen. And can you do a 1-week course? Can you do a 2-week course and 3 a weekend? This doesn't happen. These are all marketing gimmicks today, unfortunately offered by ashrams and everywhere. It is a lifestyle. You have to slowly bring it. It's for the rest of your life. Once you become mindful, it is a lifestyle that is brought in. We cannot think of it as a course to be learned. I did it for 3 months, nothing happened. No, you can't rectify something which you have abused for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Suddenly in 3 months and 6 months, I have to reverse that. And along with these small ritualistic practices, like I said, yoga asanas and pranayama exercises, I have to now observe what is my lifestyle in general, right? Like I explained, the relation between hands. What are my hands doing the rest of the day? What are my fingers doing the rest of the day? Are they reaching out to give, or are they grabbing? An attitude is what I need to explore to understand Vayu. Then I understand the connection between Vayu and other creatures and like birds and all of that. Then comes the sound. Sound, of course, that is why Namasmarana, they say, is, Namasmarana, for those of you, most of you are familiar with Sanskrit, but in case you're putting it on YouTube and others watch it, Namasmarana means chanting of, loosely translated again, chanting of name, sound. Again, we're going to sound. And they say that is the most powerful in this time and age. It has always been the most powerful. I have no doubt about it. Because in that sound, we create most wonderful vibrations. Now, sound in general, like our thoughts, you and I perhaps think in Hindi or Marathi or English or whatever it is we think inside, that's language. But there is one language that was born purely out of intuitive sounds with 50 alphabets, if you will, or 50 letters, each corresponding to the 50 petals distributed over the 6 chakras. And that is Sanskrit. Sanskrit is not confined to one religion, or it is a science. It is a language which is based on the science of sounds. The neural paths, new neural pathways can be created in your children, in you and me. We can overcome addictions. We can overcome illnesses. We can overcome laziness. We can recreate the reality. I know it's too difficult to believe. It's too good to believe, but it's truth. I can recreate my reality through sound. But can I maintain the purity of that sound? If I chant 5 minutes a day, let's say Ram, 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 and the rest of the 24 hours, 55 minutes, I'm throwing junk in that inner space, then that Ram is powerful enough, but it is drowned in all of that. It's like a diamond that is lost in your closet, where all the old clothes and everything, you don't know which pocket you put it in. The diamond earring is gone, or the diamond ring is gone. You have to search now. You have no idea. It doesn't mean the diamond ring is not valuable. It is lost because your clothes are disorganized, the inner space, right? It's the same thing. That sound of Ram that you chant is not is not is not weak, nor is it ineffective, but it is appears to be ineffective because the rest of this inner space is clouded by other sounds. So watch the story you tell yourself. Watch that. So in yoga, finally, they say Nada yoga is the highest yoga. Nada yoga. Nada means sound. The sound of yoga, practicing of the Om, because it silences the mind and opens to listening. And my final thoughts here. Listening was the main method of teaching. If you have a child, sit and talk, make that child listen. You don't sit and start preaching, the child won't listen, but make an interesting story. Let the child close the eyes and go into that fairy tale world. It's okay, because in that fairy tale world, they're building a reality. In that 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever it is, they're building, give that chance for that fearless reality for them to build. In that inner space, they build this. You might call it fantasy, but it is the seeds of reality are sown by us, you, me, as parents, as elders in this community. When they entertain thoughts of how strong Hanuman was, how vibrant he was, and all of that, those are the reality, the thoughts that are sown. Can I be like him? Can I be like her? So those stories come in. Listening is an important part. The first organ that comes into play when you and I are born, when a child is born, is hearing. And the last organ that departs is hearing. So even in a person in a coma, at some level, the sounds that go in through the ears are getting registered. And therefore, in Vedas, how do you think Vedas were taught traditionally? Shravana. That's why they call Shrutis. Veda is another word for Veda, Vedanta, and all of this is Shruti. The teacher would sit and he would make people listen. When you listen, you and I, when we listen, each of us in our inner space, we create that listening into our reality. If I say chair, close your eyes and think chair. Each of you are thinking of a chair of your choice. And that's the beauty of this. But if I give you a picture of a chair and say, this is chair, all of us are bound to think like that. And thus we have unfortunately created a society of like-minded sheep, because we write on the wall, A for apple. And everybody says, okay, A for apple. And we all pat ourselves, we are educated. But we are all in one line of education. We are broken away from, we don't educate ourselves in developing intuition. Where is that in our education? We don't. It's gone. It's disappeared. We don't develop spirituality in our education. In other words, understanding of this integration of our lives with the elements. We don't even learn that. It's gone. It's confined to some religious practices and this and that. So we have lost that. So Vedas were predominantly taught, that civilization was taught with hearing, only listen and learn. So the neural paths were formed in a very different manner as your and my neural paths, where we need visions, we need visuals to learn now. Without visuals, we can't even learn. We have come down from that inner space. From Vayu Tattva, we come down to the Agni Tattva now to learn. Right? We have from the Akasha. So sound is an important part, such an important part. So think about that, how you can enrich your life and empower life with these, and open your mind to learning. And there is no end to learning and integrating these concepts into your life. There are no do's and don'ts here. There are no strict rules and regulations. There is no such thing as sin and merit here. It's a matter of what is useful, what is useless, what is beneficial, what is not beneficial. And that's all it is. And my final words are, in this manner, you and I are connected through these 5 elements, very closely connected. If you and I are seeing eye to eye in these concepts today, at this moment, it's a sound that is connecting you and me. Yes, perhaps to some extent the visualization as well, but you could very well put this off and just simply listen with your eyes closed. It makes sense. So sound in that space, you and I are connected. There are no boundaries in space, no walls in space. That is all created by the earth element, much later, that comes down the line. There are no walls, no boundaries. So in space, we can all connect. And that then space, which is now the end of this level, is the beginning of the spirit. So the 5 chakras, Mooladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipuraka, Anahata, Vishuddha. The 5 chakras represent the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. Then what about this? This is where the mind ends and the spirit blossoms. The mind can't go there. We can't intellectualize that. That is why beyond this, you have to experience the opening, or the existence of a dimension beyond space. You enter into what we call consciousness. Again, thank you all for your patience. I know I perhaps went too fast and there's so much, but this is so dear to my heart. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share all of this in a nutshell. I'll leave it to you all now. We'll have some discussions. If you feel inclined to it, please do ask a question or post it on a chat. I don't think I can read a chat, but I'm hoping Sucharita can read it and post the questions to me. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. It was really engrossing. Though I think all of you must log on to KYG channel and listen to the Kaivalya Marga classes. He's done extensive job on each of these elements and yet to come. It's in pause mode right now, but I'm sure he'll continue there. So there are no questions right now, but everybody's thanking you for the rich knowledge that is being shared. If there are any questions, you can put up by unmuting yourself or putting it in the chat.
Sundar, what is the importance of the mudras? I mean, you talked about the hand element as well. So, do you think the mudras also play an effect in channelizing or enhancing the quality of the 5 elements?
Great question. Of course, they do. Thank you for asking that. It's very important to see. Before we go into the kind of mudras and so on, we have to first establish an understanding that my fingers represent the state of my mind. It's very simple, right? If you see these days, I meet and I talk to youngsters. Some of them are so nervous, or they are addicted to something. They're constantly, the fingers are like this because the brain has been overstimulated, or they are nervous, or simply that lack addiction, or whatever it is. All of that is represented in fingers. So when we do mudras, we learn to reverse that energy back, and so there are many mudras which we can practice. But again, like I said, all of these have been to a certain extent misused, in the sense, if I don't follow the other patterns in lifestyle without the earth, without a general lifestyle of earth, water, fire, and just doing 5 minutes of mudras, if I say this is going to help you cure cancer, or this is going to help you bring stress relief, it doesn't work really. It's ridiculous to say I'll hold this for 5 minutes and somehow it's going to cure something. It doesn't work like that. Nevertheless, it is an important part. It's like a cherry on top of a cake. Does that make sense? Icing on top of the cake. See, that's how much I know about these things. Icing on top of the cake. So yes, mudras are important. But when you practice asanas, kriyas, bandhas, and then when you come to mudras, and with the mudras, having established that creative energy pattern with the breath, then when you chant the sound, then all the elements fall in place beautifully. So mudra practice is an important practice, a very subtle practice. It takes a long time for that practice to have a subtle, for you and I to actually feel that impact of that. In our situation. For example, if I say for calming yourself, sit in, it's the simplest and the most powerful mudra is the chin mudra. This is very popular, doesn't mean it becomes everybody does it. So I give me some really fancy mudra where I can sit. It sounds dramatic, but the most powerful mudra is chin mudra. Because when I say I want this, I want that, I point this finger, right? This finger that takes my consciousness out, I'm saying, no, go back to your source. The thumb represents Akasha. This represents the Vayu. This represents the fire, this represents water, and the little finger represents earth. Now, this is based on the Vedic rituals that have been practiced for thousands of years. Now, nowadays there are things from Chinese and Hong Kong and this and that and so many varieties. So don't ask me about those. I don't know them. But the simplest thing that they do in rituals, in temples, even to this day, lam Prithvi gandham. So we say from the earth element, I offer the sense of smell. From the water element, so they touch. These are the fingers. So these are the fingers that are dedicated. The main is Akasha. Akasha is the base for all of that. So this Vayu principle goes in, and so it circulates inside the body. So the Chin Mudra is a very powerful way to regulate the Vayu principle, to generate prana in the body. And along with this, I can simply sit and watch my breath. I can breathe in 4 counts, breathe out 4 counts, breathe in 4 times Ram, breathe out 4 times Ram. Any name in Sanskrit is very powerful. Some of these names are specifically designed to be very, very, very powerful. And Ram is one of the most powerful mantras because the Bijakshara, it's a Bijakshara, Ra. Ra has the very fact that you're vibrating in touching the roof of your mouth, like that, it does something straight to the center in the Sahasrara. So we have taken these things for granted so much. And these days, thanks to English, we don't even say birthday. I'm just exaggerating here. Birthday, we say birthday. 3, we say, not 3. So we refuse to even say r in English. But in Sanskrit, r is still r. So you can't say Ram, you can say Ram. R has to come. That sound. So when I do mudra and I do r, Ram, 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 and I listen to that sound, then I have a powerful spiritual practice right there. Now that supplemented with raw food, with more awareness of my tongue, my dictions, and so on, with more emphasis on physical exercises. And so in other words, all of this have to be little pieces in the overall puzzle. There is no one simple thing that you can do this meditation 5 minutes a day and your whole life will fall in place. I don't know of such a practice. For me, it's been the hard way. I love it. And the experiences that happen is so beautiful, so amazing, that you come back so enriched, so empowered, and say, oh my God, there is so much more above this chakra that is waiting to be explored. And those dimensions are so beautiful. It is unbelievable. But those are our personal spaces. So I can't tell you this is how it should be. But yes, so long answer to a short question. Mudra is and does form an important part of the practice. And when I touch the Vayu element in the Kaivalya Marga classes, I'm going to talk about these mudras in detail, and we'll take them up one at a time. Thank you for that question.
Thank you so much.
There's a question by Asha. You want to ask it, Asha? You want me to read it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
please.
she's asking, is there any percentage of these elements which should be present in the body? For example, 70% of the body is water. So I'm not sure what she's.
No, it's a great question. I see what you mean.
Percentage of these elements. So she's
Yes.
asking which should be
Yes.
present in the body.
Yes, it's a fantastic question. You see, when we talk of the physical presence, the body has its own way of harmonizing, not balancing. The word balance is wrong. It harmonizes the 5 elements. Now, space is not seen in the body, but it is actually the foundation. Like a foundation for your home, it's under the earth. You can't see it. That doesn't mean it's not important. So you and I cannot determine the importance of one element over the other. However, ask how I would approach this. I ask myself, where is my consciousness predominantly associated with which element all the time, most of the time, or when I'm alone, where does my consciousness find its resting place? Is it in the earth element? Oh, I'm growing old. How do I look? I'm putting weight here. I got a pimple here. I got a gray hair here, or I have no hair here. Where is my consciousness? Is it in the body, or is it what do I eat next? Oh, this was not tasty. I have to try this restaurant or that restaurant. What do I plan for the weekend? And is it in that? Where does my consciousness finally rest? What is the resting place? You had to ask yourself, and that becomes predominant in your body, in your consciousness. I would rather pay importance of what is the level of importance I'm giving to these elements in my consciousness, in my thinking, in my lifestyle, rather than how much they should be in the body. So when I learn to balance these, eventually they will get balanced. When it comes to eating, I watch and I examine my addictions and I say, chalo yaar, why am I so addicted to so much salt? Can I reduce a little bit of salt? It also becomes healthy anyway, right? So can I
Yes.
redefine my taste? So when I start doing that, then we are allowing the body to harmonize and come back to its own harmony. If you, for example, you look at a beautiful painting, there are many colors used, but those colors are not necessarily balanced. They are harmony. There's a little bit of red here and there. There may be a lot of green. There may be, again, a touch of gold here and there. There could be a lot of black. But then that harmonizing of those colors is what renders beauty. So rather than saying this much physically, yes, there is 2/3 of the body is water, 1/3 is physical, earth, and water defines pretty much most of it, right? But that doesn't mean water and earth element are the important things. In my consciousness, where am I? And then that, if it is predominantly earth and water in my consciousness, then my whole water and my body gets heavier, bloated. All our diseases today, metabolic disorders and all of that, visceral fat coming from fat in the belly, all of that is because of our predominantly being trapped in the water and the earth element predominantly. So in my consciousness, I need to redefine. In my lifestyle, I need to redefine that, hey, listen, there are other elements in my body that I need to give attention to. Then things slowly start reversing. I hope I made sense.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're most welcome, Ashaji. Thank you.
No more questions right now, but I have a question.
Sure.
You were speaking about Namasmarana, the sound. So many a times, I'm sure from the Satyasai family, we are engaged in bhajans and namasmaran. We think that that is the only thing that will take us ahead in life. But for example, if I am singing a bhajan from the heart and soul of my life, and at that point somebody in my house disturbs, or I tend to snap out in anger or something like that. So how do I get that balance?
You see, when we talk of singing bhajans or kirtans or namasmarana, we assume that we have to do it loudly. It's not necessarily. Chanting of Om, for example, can be done like this. Om. Perhaps barely can hear it. That's good enough for me. As long as I'm completely enveloped in that sound, that's good enough for me. I don't have to go Om early in the morning and wake up my children. They'll say, Are Baap, pray. In Vilepale, where I was brought up, we had a 2 small-room apartment and flat, as we call it, and we had 9 people living. And my father would get up at 3:30 in the morning and do Narayana, 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 and he'll start his whole puja, and we'll all say, Are Baap, pray, and we'll cover our heads, and we'll. So one doesn't have to do that loudly. So it's because it's a personal inner space. That's number one. Number two is the word nama smarana. Smarana means recollecting. Smarana means mental process. So eventually it has to go into mental process. In other words, I think of the name rather than chant it. So there's a difference between that. I'm constantly caught up in that contemplation of the name. It'll take many years of practice to get there. But in the meantime, we can practice it softly. There is a trap in that. What we do today in bhajans and kirtans, we fall for the music of it. Arey, bahut acha gata hai. Arey, this rag is wonderful. This rhythm is fantastic. We caught up in the rhythm and the music and the rag. And the important vibration that the sound is emanating, we miss that. So that is why in the yogic path, in Shiva Samhita and Geranda Samhita and all of those samhitas of hardcore yoga teachings, they frown on music because music conditions the mind, whereas sound by itself is unconditional. So that is why there is something I call it the brain entrainment music, which is good because there is no music there. People put that along with music, but when you learn to listen to brain entraining sounds like the chirping of the birds, like the ocean waves, like the dropping of the droplets in the rain, the sound of rain, those are sounds. They're musical in nature. They're not music. So if I can tune my Ram Nam to one of those sounds, then it becomes beautiful. So Namasmarana it's a very subtle practice. Again, we'll explore more of that. We get caught in, especially group singing, then who's singing better than the other, and I didn't get a chance to sing, you didn't get we get caught into all the drama, and we miss the magic of Namasmarana. Try and do it on your own inner space. What is the smarana, what is the name that is constantly entertained by me? Ask yourself, and by name I don't mean Ram or Krishna, or that can be one. But if I keep saying, Are Bapre, I have to progress so much, I don't know anything like this, where will I start? That is a nama that I'm constantly getting into smarana. I'm constantly redefining myself as I'm not capable, perhaps I have a lot to do, perhaps, and this and that incompleteness, that smarana becomes my reality, forms the seeds of my reality. So Nama Smarana gives you an idea, opens the doors for you to become very mindful of the name. If Ram Nam and chanting Ram Nam for about 15, 16 minutes and entrains my mind into that vibration, it gives me so much peace. And that joy and the peace that I derive, I don't want to let go of that. And so that opens the door to, wow, I never knew there was this inner space, this place, this altar within me that I can create and maintain the purity there. And so I keep going back to that Namasmarana. That is the whole idea of Namasmarana practice. And that's why it's considered very important. Then you will find the effect of that. You'll become very mindful of every thought, any thought that disturbs me from there, like a self-judgmental idea, or I'm not good for this, or I don't deserve this. That kind of a low esteem thought comes in. Immediately, you become conscious because it disturbs the peace that I got from that Ram. Immediately, my subconscious mind compares, makes me uncomfortable in this. I go back to Ram. So that is the idea of Namasmarana here. Not asking Ram anything, not saying, Ram, please give me peace of mind, or Ram, make me rich and make me healthy. No asking there at all. There is no asking in Namasmarana. There is delving into the sound, drowning yourself into the sound, entering the dimension of sound and staying there, immersed in the sound. And the beauty of Sanskrit language, the beauty of these rishis, they have formulated that and given to us. The Bijaksharas have their own latent energies that are released at very deep unconscious levels. And all that will happen if we are able to maintain the purity of that sound and the practice of that sound, consistency, regularity, and so on.
Thank you. But my one doubt is that at 1 minute I am totally in bliss, but the same minute, how does that anger creep in? I mean, there's a duality there. Why is not that sweetness translated into my speech at home? Is my concern, which you can answer probably later if I'm taking a lot of time.
No, not at all. I think it's a very valuable question. I think when you take your vacuum cleaner or a broom and decide to clean the house, you're not going to find a clean house. That is exactly when you're going to find all the dust and cobwebs. But do you stop cleaning because of that? Arey bapre, every time I take off my vacuum and broom, I find so many cobwebs and, oh gosh, I'm not going to clean anymore. So that actually motivates you to clean. So when you chant and then you suddenly get angry, that is because of that consciousness from there, it starts crashing down. How do I now control that and gently bring it down? It comes with practice. So don't stop the practice. Eventually it'll come with practice. It'll come with practice. And you'll learn to embrace, not resist an experience that is presenting itself while you're chanting Ram. Somebody puts on a television. We say, Arey bapre, I'm doing this, and they're putting on a television. That's too loud. That problem is mine. I'm resisting that sound versus this sound. Eventually, I will learn to embrace that sound and filter that sound out, so it will stop bothering me. And so my reaction will not be silent anymore. But initially, the more we get into this sadhana, in this lifestyle, spiritual lifestyle, in this mindful lifestyle, as we call it, the sadhana path, the more we are going to see these kind of cobwebs and dirt, some of them easy to remove, some of them very difficult to remove. And that's okay. That's part of this internal cleansing. So don't get discouraged. That's part of the practice that shows that you are experiencing the richness, and that the fact that you're aware of these two itself is a great step.
I hope so. Thank you. Mr. Naresh Duble has raised his hand. Probably wants to ask.
Hi. I joined a little late, but wonderful session. Thank you so much. My question is, if any sound is a vibration, and it has some value to heal, right? That's what I got from the last 20 minutes session. And I know somebody who just give any name and you just say that, and it really solves or heals the problem. But doesn't it make you dependent on that to an extent, and doesn't purify you completely? Or only when you are in the vibration, you are feeling better, but it limits you to expand yourself, what you could do if you do, let's say, a silent practice, or include everything which you said right now also 2 minutes back when I lowered my hand and then again raised it, which you said, include that ram sound into it, and then you get one with it and ignore it, kind of stuff. So that's my precise question, that can we achieve this purification without chanting?
Well, you missed the earlier part of the Akasha. I feel came in a little late. My point about chanting and all of this idea of I didn't use the word purify, good and bad very mindfully for that particular reason, because we fall into that trap of good sounds and bad sounds and all. My point that I'm trying to establish, and the mindfulness that we need to establish, is sound is the building block of all our realities that you experience. So when you want to experience that freedom that you talk about, it comes from the basis is sound. There is no such thing as silent sitting. The only time when the mind is silent is when we are fast asleep, or when we are into the superconscious meditative state, in the Turiya Avastha. Okay, both of those places, mind doesn't exist. And so in this conscious practice level, I want to learn how to create sounds that will release me into that freedom, that creativity. So sound is, I'm not dependent on the sound. I'm using a sound as a stepping stone, as a tool. For example, if I need to go to the roof, I need a ladder to go to the roof. So the ladder becomes my sound. Once I'm on top of the roof, I'm beyond all of that. But what kind of ladder do I put? What kind of ladder can I lift and open and put it all the way up? Which is the ladder I'm more comfortable with? That depends on each one of us, right? So the fundamental thing is sound creates reality. If I know that, then I become more conscious. And the more consistent sounds that I entertain, the more that vibrational pattern forms into thoughts. Those thoughts slowly form into my actions, my words, and then my actions lead to drawing that into my life in some form. And we create that reality. A word sofa, each one of us creates a sound sofa. And the more you think of sofa chahiye, yaar, sofa chahiye, is room mein sofa chahiye, I need a corner, that eventually that will materialize. Somewhere you'll find a sofa, some sale, you'll say, baap re, I was just thinking of sofa, and that is sale has happened, and you'll buy it and put it. Because you're constantly entertaining, it will find reality. So if that is a power of sounds in our internal space, then what kind of sounds can we do? So can we use these sounds? Again, I'm not getting into religious thing, because we get trapped there. But understand that Vedic mantras, and these mantras are sound energies, pure sound energies that were created to give you that. Shreem, for example, is a sound that releases abundance in your consciousness. And if that abundance is released in the consciousness, eventually it will manifest into reality, and you will only experience abundance, and you will start giving because you feel very content. So that has to happen if I entertain. There's an element of magic, if you will, there, if you for the lack of any other explanation. But the principal understanding is, what is the sound I am entertaining in my consciousness, as thoughts or as mantras or anything? What is the story I'm telling myself here constantly? What are the thoughts that's going on here? What are the sounds that's coming from outside? What is the quality of that sound that I am entertaining from outside? And what is the sound quality that is I am speaking out? All of that determines my reality. Whether it is health, whether it is spiritual enlightenment, everything begins, like everything began from Om, we say, right? That the vibrational frequency sets the basis for reality. That's my point. After that, we can break it into all of the other practices, namasmarana, mantras, and all of that. But my point here in this gathering is, at this moment, is simply to establish importance of sound. Now, once in a while you hear a sound, don't get paranoid. It doesn't come, and it just comes and goes, right? but it is a consistency of a particular pattern of thought, the neural path in the brain that I am constantly entertaining. What is the kind of thought I am constantly entertaining? Ask yourself that. Then you will look around and say, that thought, that kind of thinking is what has happened out here. So can I change that? And eventually, can that vibrations change the reality? It is absolutely possible. So
Thank you so much.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Viral the Manya has one question. I think Jagdish can be the last. This can be the last question.
Can I ask?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. My question is almost similar to the previous question, but I want to move one step further. So when we chant any mantra, and then it becomes a siddhi. So at a time that mantra sound. So one is that we chant something consciously, and when it gets it turns into siddhi, that mantra automatically comes into our mind when we are into meditative state. So
Yes.
that I was referring to anahat sound. So my perception is that in the path of liberation, so if I am chanting some mantra, so it comes in a way when we are in process of liberation, that anahat sound emerges, and that anahat sound, when it ends, and after that the silence emerges. So
Yeah.
so in a way it becomes a long path for the samadhi avastha. So is that understanding is right, and how do we harmonize these things?
No, you're absolutely right. Like you just said it in other words. What I talked about, the ladder going to the roof. The roof is
Right,
that
right.
ultimate state of silence,
Correct.
but I need a ladder to get there. So the sound is again a tool to take you there. Sound is not an end by itself. So absolutely right. See, what happens is we call mantra siddhi or attaining siddhi in a mantra. What does that mean? When I take a particular sound, whatever that sound is, right? We have experiences in our own life. So if I keep saying I can't sing, I can't sing, I can't sing, I can't sing, I will attain siddhi in that mantra. Guess why? I will not be able to sing. So that is attaining siddhi in that particular mantra. I cannot sing. Correct?
Right.
Same thing applied in a positive way. Suppose I take a mantra and I chant, understanding the importance, the significance, and I mindfully chant that mantra, entertain that mantra in my thoughts. So constant integrated is important thing, consistency, practice, and all of that. So when I constantly entertain that, when that, like you said, the anahata, when the sound comes with it's a soundless sound, actually, it emanates by itself, then that is called the activation of that mantra. The mantra begins to get activated on its own. It will start entertaining itself in our consciousness. First, it comes as a sound, as a mantra being repeated, and then eventually it will settle down as a vibrational frequency in our consciousness. Now, if you listen to a bhajan, 2 days later, it will start singing. You ruminate and say, "Pata nahi yaar, this song suddenly came in my head. How did that come?" Imagine if that is a constant thing. So with practice, of course, it takes you there, and eventually it'll open a door to that. All of these are means that opens door to that ultimate experience. So when we say paths to liberation, it is not going somewhere, it is going back, finding that lost key. So thank you for that perception and question.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think no more questions. I'll request Ashita Shah to give us the vote of thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sucharita ma'am. It's my pleasure to cast a vote of thanks on behalf of Lost Key Group. So the way you reflected upon philosophy and religion is commendable. As said by you, we indeed need to implement these, otherwise it would merely be a belief. Please accept our heartfelt gratitude for accepting our invitation and throwing light on certain aspects which we had only heard, and now today we have experienced it in a true sense. thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us. It really means a lot to all the group members here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namaste. Thank you all. Have a blessed day. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so
Thank
much.
you so much, Sundar sir. Thank you so much. You took more than an hour, but it was really, which felt it like passing so beautifully. In every, I mean, you took so much pain to explain that. It is really thankful to you, really thankful to you.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you.
God bless.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Yeah. Thank you, Jagdish and Litesh and everyone.
Thanks so much.
Sai Ram. Bye-bye.
Sai Ram. Thanks. You can stop the recording.
Oh yeah, sorry.